So let me share my CIA journey with you quickly. 2010, 2011 was the years I started my CIA journey. So I started my journey when the CIA exam was still 4-part exam. Now it is 3-part exam, CIA Part 1, CIA Part 2, and CIA Part 3. So I actually started when it was 4 parts, 2010, 2011. So I started with a training on this CIA exam, and somebody introduced CIA to us. We went for training. At the end of the day, we finished the training. We had an opportunity to take some mock exams. I even have till now, I have that score, the mock exam, and I did well. But there was not enough fund to actually take the CIA exam. I was still working. I think I was working in BAM PHP that time, 2010, 2011. I was in BAM PHP. So I was unable to take the CIA exam when I actually did CIA Part 1 and CIA Part 2 classes. I still have the certificates for those classes till now. And that's the reason why we always offer CIA candidates an opportunity if they want the certificate. Okay, this is a training. Actually, many people didn't go through the internal auditing training as professionals. So this is like learning internal auditing from A to wherever you are going to. So no money to start the journey. So I didn't take the CIA exam not until 2016. So I went back to the IIA. I went back to the IIA for the same training that I did around 2011. In 2016, when I was ready, I think the fund I can have. I was able to get the fund to take the exam. So I went through lots. Some people collected some money from me that they shouldn't collect, and that's the reason why we provide the resources for CIA candidates in our sessions. I paid for the things that I shouldn't have paid for. Nigerians, people saw opportunity because I wanted it, I desired it. However, I took the exam. When I took this exam, it was on my own. When you are a reader, you tend to read so many things. So let me tell you, and I always say CIA candidate that I don't believe one exam resource material is enough for the exam. It could be enough for you. In my own case, GLEM was my exam review material, but I read IICI learning system. I read OC. I read power record sources, meaning that I consulted those extra review materials when I needed a better understanding about some things. So I reached out to OC, power resources, GLEM, IICI learning system to ensure that I understand what I am doing. So I took the exam and I passed. My practice guides, I used my practice guides. The contents of the IPPF, the International Professional Practices Framework, that are very important for this exam. I read them. I ensured I read them. I read my standards, the international standards for the professional practices of internal auditing. I read like 3 times. It's less than 40 pages. I read like 3 times before the exam. I was just to ensure that I imbibe the principles and the practice in myself. So you may not do as much as I did to pass the exam. I don't know about your experience, but I took the exam like novice, somebody that wants to learn from zero. And that is why we are discussing CIA today together. I learned like somebody that doesn't know anything, because I gave myself to the profession to learn. So that was how I took the CIA exam. So some of my mentees will say, don't go back to Mr. Alaba when you are prepared, because you still ask you to go and read something. I will still ask you to read. Have you read this? Have you checked this? Have you consulted this? Did you use this as your reference material? How long did you give to your preparation? I think Abiba even went for the CIA exam without even telling me, because she knew I would still actually have to go and check something. And at the end, based on her experience, she found the exam to be simple, easier than she expected, because I was, I will ask you to do more, because you should not fail. I didn't fail. So I do not want any of our CIA participants to fail. And that is why I always tell them, I always teach patience. There's nothing to rush for. And that is the conclusion of everything I'm saying before I allow others to speak. There's nothing to rush for in this exam. The pass rate tells us that more people are failing this exam than they are passing it. And that is the reason why you have to be very patient. The things that you'll be tested in the CIA exam are the things that you should have been doing in the last 3 years before you decide to take this exam. The new things that you see here today, from today, the things that you have never seen before, the concepts that you thought were confusing before, are the things that you should have understood. Maybe let's say 2 to 3 years before you decide to take this exam. So if somebody tells you that he or she passed the exam in 6 months, you don't know how long they have been using the IIA's International Professional Practices Framework. You don't know. You don't know their internal audit experience. If their internal audit experience is based on the IPPF, it will be easier for them. But if we are conventional auditors, like accountants or external auditors, you will see new things. And the more new things you found in the domains of this exam, the more work you have to do to learn and imbibe those new things in your way of performing your professional internal audit services. Thank you very much. This is my introduction. Abibat, let's allow the lady, if Abibat is ready, let us share our own experience and our tips before I start my own presentation, and they can always support me while I am discussing.
Okay, so like you said, but before I even start, for me, it feels different being on the other side of the training as a speaker. So I'm really glad to be here and happy to share my view about the CIA certification. So my journey was quite interesting because I had a kind of different intention to write the CIA exam. I know a lot of people here might be under tension to write the exam. Maybe they have a need. But for me, the CIA was just something I wanted, not like I needed it at that point. So I really took my time to read. Like Mr. Alaba said, you need to be very patient with the CIA certification. When you're passing through the journey, make sure you get the value from the certification. Learn as much as you can to improve your practice as an internal auditor. So I have other tips here which I've written down that I feel could help. One of the tips is for you to define your intention. And the intention should not be just about passing, but about learning what internal audit is all about, so that if they are talking about the internal auditing profession, you'll be able to say something good about it. And I feel that reflected in Olatunde, because whenever he speaks about internal auditing, it was really clear that he wasn't just writing the exam to pass, but he really took his time to understand the profession, which is something I feel if every one of us, we took our time, we'll be able to also speak about the profession after passing the exam. Another thing that really helped me is the fact that I think Mr. Alaba also mentioned it. You need to make the standard and implementation guide your friend. The CIA certification is testing your understanding of the standard and the implementation guide. So for you to pass the part 1, it's really important to look through the standard, understand everything, like know it to heart, and be able to talk about each of it. So whenever they are testing your understanding on each of the standard, you'll be able to get the question right. Another thing that really helps me is the fact that I would advise that you shouldn't take a break in between your preparation. If you have the intention of writing the exam within 3 months, please just make sure that you're reading all through that 3 months, maybe 4 times in a week. Don't take break. Don't read for 1 week and the other week you're busy with work. Just try to define your time. Have a set timeline and know that you're going to read all through that time. Don't take a break in between, because CIA certification is not an easy journey. It's something you need to devote your time to and make sure that you go through it with that intention. Another thing that works for me is the fact that whenever you're reading your exam, it's not everything you're reading that is necessary, and it's not everything that a speaker or a trainer is saying that is really important to you passing. So it's really important to jot down the key points, the important point that will help you to pass the exam. And when your exam is maybe 1 week or 2 weeks to writing your exam, that you don't need to read the entire resources. You just focus on that keynote that you've written down. For myself, I have 3 jotters. I have one for part 1, one for part 2, and one for part 3. Once the exam is, one is 1 week to the exam, I don't read all the resources. I just go to my keynote, my jotter, and read through the key point that I've written down, and it really helped me a lot. But I wasn't under pressure. The last thing I would also say is that please take your time, rest well before writing the exam. Don't rush into the exam. Take enough rest, because trust me, the exam is not going to be everything you've been reading or all the glam questions you've been attempting. That's not what will come out. The exam is going to test your understanding, and for you to be able to pass, you need to depend on your brain. So please take enough time to rest, and I believe you're going to make it to the end. So if I remember any other thing, I can still chip it in between, but that's everything I have for now. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Abibat. I appreciate your experience, and she's mentioned something that is very important: taking notes. Before we move on, I want to show us something about my notes. My notes started on the 18/06/2018. Look at what I did. Unfortunately, the camera may not see what I want to show you. Look at the way this camera may not see it. If you look at this, what I am showing you, you see some notes, my handwriting, all over the pages of the book. These are the things she's talking about. She had her own notes. However, what I do is to print each of those chapters or each chapters out. Then I only print only front. Then I use the back. The back of, you can see my highlights. You can see my highlights. You can see my notes on the back of each of the pages. The open pages, I put my note there. So before the exam, I know my key points. I know where my key points are. So in my revision time, I just go to where I have defined that thing in my own way, based on my own understanding, based on my research, based on all the resources that I've consulted. This is how I end it. So I just say, this is what this is it, and it will not change. So it is very important to be able to take notes for this exam. Thank you very much, Abibat. Let's move to Olatunde.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's nice to be here for the very first time. Yeah, so I think Abibat and Alaba said, most of the things that I would have said. Most of what they have said are things that I also applied during my study and my preparation. And for me, I think the most important thing is to ask yourself what the CIA certification will mean for you, because that is what is going to drive you during those difficult times, during those times when you don't feel like keying up your notes or your study materials, during those times when you are feeling the pressure from work, trying to balance work and study, during those times where you are finding it difficult to get the funds to pay for your exams. And you need to just know from the very beginning what you want to do with the CIA certification. Do you want to use it to build your career in internal audit, to distinguish yourself? Is it something you just want to do to add knowledge to yourself? Because internal audit is something that you are very passionate about. You need to just define what that means for you. And for me, I saw it as a game changer for me, something that could take me to the next level in my career. Because also for a while I felt like I was not, where I wanted to be career-wise. So I needed something that would just kind of, change the game for me. And I would say it has not disappointed so far since I got the certification. Really helped me in my career. So I think it's very important to just define what the certification will mean for you after you get it. And another thing is to have a study plan. I think this one is general for any exam that you're writing. you need to have a study plan and try as much as possible to stick to it. It's impossible to stick to it 100%, but just kind of give yourself. I know it's very important not to rush the exams, right? But you need to also give yourself a reasonable timeline so that you don't just spend 1 year, 2 years reading for one part. You need to say, okay, look at your time, the time that you have available for study, and say, okay, can I read 1 hour every day, or can I read 10 hours per week? You need to give yourself, allocate time for study, and study at the best times that are very convenient for you. Some people find it very convenient to study in the morning, some late at night. So just have a steady, consistent plan that you can follow through. So at least I'll recommend at least 100 hours for each part, at least the minimum, and it could be more depending on whether you have internal audit experience, based on your exposure, based on your past studies. Someone who had done a similar certification like CIA, you might not need to study as much. A minimum of 100 hours is always recommended, and for part 3 maybe a little bit more. So it's just for that to set a minimum of study hours that you can set aside to study for the exam. And I think finally for me, is the CIA exam is very different from other exams that I've written, in the sense that the examiners focus on application of the concepts 90% of it. And they ask you questions in unexpected scenarios, and that is why it's so important for you to really understand the material. And I think that's one of the reasons why the pass rate is a bit low, because the approach people have used to pass other exams does not necessarily work for the CIA exam, because they are deep on being able to apply those concepts in practical business settings. So when you are studying, you need to forget about cramming anything. Just try as much as possible to reflect on what you are studying and find meaning in what you are reading. It's a plus if you are currently an internal auditor, you work in an assurance role, because you can kind of link what you are reading to what you are doing at work on a daily basis. And that's why experience is so important. So at least you should be exposed to what the auditors do, what assurance feels like on the field, and being able to find meaning from what you're studying, taking a step back after reading 3 or 4 pages to reflect on what you've just read and what it means for you, is what makes the difference in the exam hall. Because no matter how many questions you solved, no matter how much materials you've read, you would always find questions that will spook you. Questions that you did not expect to come out. So because they kind of ask the same concepts in different scenarios, and the options can be confusing sometimes if you didn't really understand the concept. So it's important to just make sure that you're gaining meaning, you're gaining something from your study experience. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Olatunde. I appreciate your experience, knowledge sharing session, and the most important thing for me is that we should adjust to our own way of learning. So we can always give advices. We can try to share our past experience so that you won't make the same mistakes with you. However, you still have to be committed to how you want to learn. This is not an exam where somebody will think, I will just read and pass. This is about application. It's a multiple choice exam that is so technical, so logical, and the gap between yes and no is very faint. Pass or fail is very faint. You have 4 options. Out of the 4 options, there are 2 detractors that are just there. We have so many techniques. We have two options that will look similar, but only one is correct. So it means you have to understand what you are doing. When I passed my CI Part 1, I didn't believe I passed. When they gave me the printout slip, I saw pass. I felt, what is the meaning of pass? Because I felt with all the work that I've done, so I'm just going to see pass on the paper. I called one of my associates, Rotimi Adenigba. I called him. I said, Rotimi, this is what I got. I said, young man, go home. You have passed the Part 1. So that is how it is. Because when you work, what you will just see is pass. You don't want to see fail. You don't want to see analysis of how you did it. So we don't want to see those analyses. Significant improvement here, moderate improvement. You don't want to see it. Just see pass and move on. And I want to conclude by saying everything in CIA is connected. From the foundations of internal auditing to fraud risk, they are connected. You will see repetition. The same thing that will start with foundation of internal auditing, you will see how we'll be repeating it almost everywhere. So be ready to connect this concept, these principles, these standards. You will not say this is just for internal control. It doesn't have to do with foundations of the things you will learn in foundations of internal auditing are still going to come up again in risk management, because you have to talk about responsibilities of internal auditor, in risk management, in controls, in other areas, in governance. So all the concepts, everything are connected from the beginning. They are all connected. So if you understand that they are connected, it means that you have to understand them initially, bit by bit. So by the time you begin to see relationship, because okay, this is it. I've met a CIA aspirant that said he doesn't need to practice what he was learning based on the IPPF in his current place of work, that those things were not for his current place of work. That CIA candidate paid GLEM premium twice, and he failed twice. He did not continue. Whatsoever you are seeing from today, you have to put them into perspectives of what you are doing. Although you may not be able to change what you are seeing in your environment, but you know that should be. So do not join the argument about that is in an ideal situation. The reason why you are here is because of these discussions. You can read and pass on your own. Do not have that mindset of, okay, that is in an ideal situation. CIA is about in an ideal situation, what should be, what ought to be. What ought to be. So if what ought to be is not the way you do it in your current environment, okay, no problem. You now know that this is what ought to be. So you have to take away that mindset of, oh, this is how we do it here. Fine, that is how you do it in your current place of work. Fine. However, when you begin to learn CIA, begin to now understand what ought to be. And you have to answer questions according to that what ought to be. Please understand questions, approach questions based on what ought to be. The what ought to be are the things that you will learn from domain 1 to domain 6 in the CIA Part 1. And also when you get to the practice of internal auditing or internal audit practice, CIA Part 2, those are the things that should be. So whatsoever that you now found that is how it is done, just focus on it. Learn more about how it should be. Forget about your current environment. See, some people have that advantage of practicing with the IPPF. If you have not practiced with the IPPF, you will see lots of what to be. Take it the way it is. Understand them, and you should know the reasons why they are established to be the best practice for internal auditing. Do not adjust your thinking to what you have known over time in your place of work. It will not help you're passing the exam. So you need a change of mindset as to be able to adopt what ought to be as the criteria for judging the practice of internal auditing anywhere in the whole world. I hope that is clear enough. So many times we will be starting our sessions with this kind of discussion. Now, what we are going to do is I'm going to start the CIA class, this and that very soon, but that is not what is important. We will need to study the CIA based on the syllabus. We will need to consult books and related materials. If you are studying CIA, I have to tell you the truth. The truth is that internet may not be a good place to confirm some things about internal auditing, except if they are written by the IIA. So you have enough resources to consult, and that is the essence of being in this class. We are going to share all of those resources at the end of the session, at the end of the whole class, so that you can now have where to go and look for information. Internet may not be a good place in the beginning because there are lots of information about internal auditing on the internet that will be wrong. Maybe some are written by conventional internal auditors, and they may not be in alignment with the IIA practice guides. So just be patient. You will have enough resources to do this exam, and you always have us. You can call, you can send message to Abiba. Abiba is in our WhatsApp group. You can send message to her. She can help you. You can send message to me. I will tell you when I will have enough time to discuss, and I could just have a call with you. And after just one statement, you are okay with everything that is confusing you. And that is why we are together. Thank you very much. This is where I'm going to stop this recording before I start my presentation. So I will be asking Abibat and Olatunde if they have addition based on what we are discussing. When I feel like I think I need to take a rest from the speaking engagement. So in our first session, we will try to cover foundations of internal auditing, then try to cover independence and objectivity. But in our second Saturday, we only focus on just at least one domain and end it there. So we spend about 2 to 3 hours on our second Saturday, so that sometimes we want to ensure that people have enough time to go and be looking at the details of the things that we have given in the first 2 weekends. So another area is that we will share the presentation document with you, and also one of the CIA review material based on the domains that we complete. For example, if you're able to conclude on domain 1 today, we will share that domain 1 with you, so you can, based on the things that you have heard from us, you can now confirm them by reading. So when you read, the reading will be faster in my opinion, and the understanding will be better because you have heard about them before, and you think, okay, Alaba said this, Abiba said it, Olatunde said this, oh, that is what they are talking about. So you are only establishing what you learned from the class, and we also engage one another during this session. Thank you very much.